Welcome to Notable Approvals. I'm attorney Amanda Shaffer. We have another great case about naturalization to talk about today. Before I do that, I just want to remind everybody, as I said yesterday, that on November 5th, Thursday, November 5th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Aaron Shapiro and I will be co-hosting a live Q&A discussion on naturalization. So today we're going to talk about naturalization again. And this is another case that I say falls in a category of marathon cases. And I call it that because it took unnecessarily long and we had to work unnecessarily hard in order to get this application finally approved. So it took over 4 years, and I'll explain why. So this client is a native and former citizen of Indonesia. He initially got his green card based on asylum back in the early 2000s. He came to us in 2014 after he was arrested for a minor offense. And we did represent him in the criminal case. We got it to be pled down to, a violation, not even a misdemeanor. He paid a fine. There was a conditional discharge of 1 year, which basically means if he doesn't, he did plead guilty, but if he doesn't get arrested or any trouble in a year, he won't have a problem. So then in 2015, we filed for his naturalization. Even though he had an arrest in a statutory period that they look at for good moral character, like I said, it was something minor, and we thought it was worth taking the chance because he also wanted to be able to file for his wife, who didn't have any status. And he couldn't until he became a U.S. citizen. So we file the application. My client had lived in New York, but by the time we filed it, his residency was in Georgia. So we filed it down there because you have to file it where the client lives. So because he was in Georgia, he went to the interview by himself. We offered, we offered to go, but it would cost a lot for us to go. And we also offered to find an attorney down there who would be less expensive for him to go with him. But he said, I can handle it. I can go by myself. Okay. So he went by himself. And just for the record, we don't always say to clients that they should take an attorney. If you have a criminal issue, especially in the statutory period, we highly recommend it. So this was a case where we felt he should have an attorney, but because he was down there and he didn't want to have an attorney, he didn't know him come in with him, he decided to go himself. And so he goes to the interview, and at the end of the interview, they give him a request for evidence saying that we need proof of all your criminal convictions. I think they also asked for proof of his probation was completed. He never had probation. And some other documents that actually didn't exist. So we did submit the certificate of disposition initially, but he also had 2 other matters that got condensed into that one that I represented him on in court. Those were also minor offenses, and those were actually ACD'd, or adjourned in contemplation of dismissal, which in New York is something that means that he actually didn't have to plea. It's similar to a conditional discharge. But essentially it gets sealed, and unless for immigration purposes, you have to tell them, but it's very difficult to find those records. So we went to the interview, they gave him the RFE, we timely respond to the RFE with whatever we had on the criminal case. Then we get a denial notice saying we never replied to the RFE. So I had, of course, the proof of mailing and everything, and this was another case where we felt the N336, or the naturalization appeal, was warranted because we 100% sent it to them, and for some reason they're saying they didn't get it. So we filed the N336 and we include a copy of everything. They deny it again, saying that we didn't give them originals. We did give them originals the first time when they said the package they didn't get. We didn't send it the second time because my client had to come up to New York just to get the certificate of disposition, to get the original with the seal. And we were like, look, we sent it to you. But that wasn't even the main reason they denied it. They denied it because they thought he had probation and some other things that he didn't have that they wanted. So we said to our client, look, it looks like they don't understand what conditional discharge or ACD means. And that's because this is where criminal and immigration law intersect and why immigration law can be so complicated, because each state has their own criminal laws. They have their own definitions of terms. So things differ slightly. So down in Georgia, I'm not a lawyer there, but they may have a different definition for conditional discharge. And that seemed to be the problem because the officer did not understand that he never received probation. So I said to him, I don't know if there's any chance of you moving back to New York, because all of his family is still in New York. He just moved down there with his wife and 2 kids. But I think if you can move back, if you have any chance to move back, I would move back and then we'll refile. You have to be physically present in the jurisdiction for at least 3 months before you can do that. So he's like, yes, I can get my work to transfer me. Like, this is worth it for that. My family's here anyway. I wasn't planning to leave New York forever. So he came back up here. We refile his application with the certificates of disposition. He got new originals again. I even told him to get a second set of new originals for the interview just in case. And then I went to the interview with him. So we go to the interview. We sit there for 3 hours. And then the officer comes out and says, oh, we don't have his file. I'm sorry, we can't do this today. If any lawyers are watching who've gone to these interviews, you've had that happen at least once, and it is very frustrating. But nothing we could do. We assumed they hadn't filed the file hadn't been transferred up to Georgia, and I was like, well, when's this going to be rescheduled? We've been waiting for a while. 30 days. He said within 30 days I'll have a new interview. Well, 30 days comes, 30 days goes, no interview notice. I ended up having to write to them several times, filed multiple case status inquiries, and an ombudsman request, which when you're talking about trying to find out why your case is taking so long, it goes like case status inquiries, and then the next step up is the ombudsman request. And after that, you get to congressional help and writ of mandamus. So we were at that point of ombudsman. He finally got his interview rescheduled, and I was worried they wouldn't have the file again, first of all. But what was really weird about this interview was it was scheduled for 4:45 p.m. And if anyone's familiar with interviews at USCIS, the office actually closes at 4:30. I was worried they wouldn't even let us in the building. And I couldn't imagine, I thought it was a mistake. I didn't know. I'm like, we have to go and hopefully they'll interview you and it'll be fine. But this is weird. So we went, and it was weird. There was no one else there. But the interview, we went in, and actually the officer, we ended up getting a supervisor because the officer said, that probably was a mistake. But luckily they were able to still do the interview. But at the end of the interview, they couldn't make a decision because they wanted a little bit more evidence on his residence to make sure he really did move back up to New York 3 months prior to filing and wasn't forum shopping. So that was easy and not a big deal. We got the evidence we needed. We returned it very quickly. And then finally, after 4 years, last year, he took the oath to become an American citizen. It was a marathon case. That's all I can say about it. It was rough. But in the end, our client is now a U.S. citizen and very happy. And it just shows you that, number one, if you have any type of criminal history, it doesn't mean you have to wait 5 years to file for naturalization. It depends what it is. And it depends, like, do you have any other issues of good moral, of your character? You have to be able to show good moral character. That's the problem, if it's like a minor criminal offense. So, but you can certainly get approved, because we were still in that statutory period when he finally got approved, as long as it's not something major. So if you do have any type of criminal history, highly recommend you talk to an attorney before filing, because you can end up in removal proceedings if you don't. And it also showed how, criminal law is complicated when it mixes with immigration, and how, if you do get arrested in one state and then apply for something in another state, people working there are not going to be as familiar with that state jargon and lexicon, and it could end up resulting in an erroneous denial like we had to deal with. So that's all for today for notable approvals. Join me on Monday. I'll have another great one for you. Don't forget to like us, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, the Gram, all that fun stuff. And keep your eye out for the announcement, our official announcement for our live Q&A discussion, November 5th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching.